This video focuses on using the quadratic formula, which you've already learned already, but now we're going to focus on imaginary roots, which we call complex roots or complex values. So you're going to have that little I in it. So here's an example. We want to solve this quadratic equation. It's in standard form, so we're going to identify the A, B, and C. So our A value is 1. Our B value is 10, 35. Again, when you use the quadratic formula, you must have this quadratic equation in standard form, which it is. So I put the quadratic formula here for you in the video, but remember you're supposed to have that memorized. So let's substitute it into the formula. So negative b, so negative 10 plus or minus the square root of b squared, which is 10 squared, minus 4ac, so a represents 1, and c represents 35. And then be sure to go all over 2 times a, so 2 times 1. Now the rest is to go ahead and simplify. So when we simplify, we want to simplify underneath the radical. It's the square root. So 10 times 10 is 100. And then negative 4 times positive 1 times positive 35 is negative 140. All over 2 times 1, which is 2. We'll continue simplifying underneath the radical. So 100 minus 140 is negative 40. All over 2. Notice what popped up. Underneath that radical is a negative. So if you remember from earlier in our class, we take that negative out of the radical and replace it with an I in front. So it's going to look like this. X equals negative 10 plus or minus. I'm going to replace that negative in the radical with an I out in front. And then the rest stays as it is. Now, we'll continue reducing the radical. We're going to break down that square root of 40. We're looking for numbers that multiply to 40. The best choice is 4 times 10. The reason why 4 times 10 is the best choice, if I go off to the side here, 4 times 10 again is 40. And if you remember what the square root of 4 is, that is 2. So that 2 is going to go out in front. And then my 10 is still left underneath. And that's what I'm going to do in this problem over here in the blue. So again, x equals negative 10 plus or minus I. And I'm going to take this square root of 4, which is now a 2. And then this 10 will stay underneath. You can't do anything with that 10. You can't get a perfect square with any multipliers of 10. And then all over 2. Now we'll continue simplifying. X equals negative 10 plus or minus I times 2 is 2I over the square root of 10. And I'm going to break apart that large fraction into 2 separate fractions. I'm going to divide both pieces by 2. Now in this first fraction, negative 10 divided by 2 is negative 5. In the second piece, I can cancel that 2 and that 2. So now it's plus or minus I square roots of 10. That is your final answer. Second example. Again, we're going to use a quadratic formula. It's in standard form. A is 2, B is negative 2, and C is 3. We'll substitute in the quadratic formula. X equals negative B, so negative 2, plus or minus b squared, negative 2 squared, minus 4ac, all over 2a. So we've now substituted everything into the quadratic formula. Now let's go ahead and start simplifying. Negative 2 and negative 2 becomes a positive 2. Underneath the radical, negative 2 times negative 2 is 4. And then negative 4 times positive 2 times positive 3 is a negative 24 over 2 times 2, which is 4. Now underneath the radical, 4 minus 24 is negative 20 all over 4. Notice we have a negative underneath the radical, so I'm going to replace that with an I out in front, and then everything else stays as it is, 2 plus or minus I square roots of 20 over 4. Now I'm going to break down the square root of 20 into a product of two numbers. So the best choice there would be 20 is the same thing as multiplying 4 times 5. So 4 times 5 is 20. Now you'll notice that the square root of 4 is 2. So 2 plus or minus, I'm going to bring this, square root of 4 is a 2. I'm going to go ahead and simplify. I times 2 is 2I all over 4. And I'm going to separate that fraction out into two pieces. 2 over 4 plus or minus 2I square roots of 5 over 4. Now you can reduce this first fraction. 2 fourths can reduce to 1/2. And then this 2 and this 2 will cancel out, and that'll just be left with a 2 and then a 1. So plus or minus I square roots of 5 over 2. Now it is a complex solution. It's an imaginary number.